On January 31st, 2014, a trio of teenagers, Morgan Geyser, Anisa Weyer, and Peyton Leutner, embarked on a picnic outing in Waukesha Park, Wisconsin. Their initial intention was to engage in a game of hide-and-seek, yet their activities ultimately culminated in a lethal encounter. Throughout his time at school, Morgan Geyser was widely regarded as an unusual individual. He harbored a deep obsession with horror narratives, spending his entire days on specific websites, crafting unsettling tales. This preoccupation meant he lacked companions. No other children wished to associate with him, nor did he himself actively seek to form friendships. It was not until the fourth grade that Morgan managed to acquire a true confidant. A compassionate young man named Peyton Leutner expressed a desire for friendship with Morgan after observing him sitting in solitude one afternoon. Morgan was pleased to finally have a companion, and they dedicated considerable time to each other's company. By October 2013, the friends encountered Anisa Weyer, and a new friendship blossomed. All three attended the same educational institution. Anisa presented as a typical young man. He excelled academically, was a favorite among instructors, and many sought his assistance with their schoolwork. However, Peyton did not find Anisa agreeable, perceiving him as aggressive and disagreeable. Anisa, in turn, harbored no affection for Peyton. Peyton sensed that Morgan and Anisa had grown exceptionally close due to their shared fascination with trolling, an interest Peyton neither comprehended nor approved of. He even confided in his parents about this situation, who advised him to cease associating with his friends, given their obsession with online trolling. Peyton's parents harbored a strong disapproval of Morgan and Anisa, believing these companions exerted a detrimental influence on their son. Peyton, however, disregarded his parents' counsel, declining to abandon his friends and persisting in their company, entirely unaware of the dire events that would soon unfold. On May 31st, 2014, the three friends proceeded to the park for a picnic. Morgan had celebrated his 12th birthday just a day prior. Subsequently, a cyclist discovered Peyton severely bleeding and immediately contacted 911. An ambulance transported the young man to the hospital, where medical professionals strenuously battled to save his life. An assailant had inflicted 19 stab wounds upon Peyton's arms, legs, and torso. Law enforcement initiated an inquiry to ascertain the identity of the assailant who had so brutally attacked the young man. It was quickly established that he had visited the park earlier that day with his companions, Morgan and Anisa. His friends were located by the side of the road, near the trailhead, their clothing bearing traces of blood. Given that these friends, like Peyton, were also 12 years old, police conducted their questioning with the utmost gentleness to avoid further traumatizing the youths. Morgan exhibited a very mild demeanor and responded to questions with calm candor. He inquired about Peyton's condition and whether he had perished. When the investigator questioned Morgan about the motivation behind harming his close friend, Morgan calmly asserted that it was a necessary act. He elucidated that the crime had been premeditated, conceived 6 months prior. They had prepared for it with meticulous detail, but had previously hesitated to execute the plan. Ultimately, on May 31st, they proceeded with their scheme, having spent the night at Morgan's residence. The preceding evening, they had commemorated his birthday. In the morning, the companions engaged in video games, subsequently dressed up and indulged in playful antics, before setting off for the park. Peyton observed that Morgan had brought a backpack to the park, containing clothes and granola bars. He inquired about the necessity of such provisions for a park visit, to which Morgan replied that they might desire a snack. The trio then embarked on their walk. The backpack also contained photographs of Anisa's and Morgan's parents, which they carried because of their uncertainty about returning home. Finally, unnoticed by anyone, Anisa placed a knife into his bag. Initially, they amused themselves on the playground, then proceeded to the restroom. Morgan and Anisa exchanged glances and conferred in hushed tones, rather than requesting Peyton to enter a stall and lie down. Peyton did not grasp the reason for this suggestion, but his companions harbored ulterior motives. They had researched that it is simpler to dispatch an individual during sleep as there is no resistance, and with eyes closed, the perpetrator avoids self-reflection or seeing their own image, thereby simplifying the act. They compelled Peyton into the stall, cornering him. Morgan questioned Anisa, stating, "I believe we had agreed you would perform the act." Anisa then violently struck Peyton's head against the wall. Subsequently, Anisa and Morgan exited the stall to confer on their next course of action. Approaching Peyton, they proposed that they leave the restroom and take a walk. The trio exited the building. They proceeded towards a cluster of trees. Anisa subtly indicated to Morgan a suitable location for executing their plan. They then suggested that Peyton engage in a game of hide-and-seek, with Morgan designated as the seeker. Anisa recommended that Peyton conceal himself by lying down on the ground within the bushes, a tactic they intended to use to incapacitate him for their assault. Peyton, however, was unwilling to lie on the ground, prompting Anisa to begin shoving him, a gesture Peyton resented. Anisa signaled to Morgan to hold Peyton down, and Morgan, in turn, gestured back for Anisa to seize him, indicating that he would then perform the stabbing. Anisa succeeded in forcing him to the ground, whereupon Morgan approached, attempting to pass the knife to Anisa. Anisa declared his inability to carry out the act. Morgan desired Anisa to commit the act personally, believing Anisa possessed superior knowledge of vulnerable points, having ostensibly viewed the film Doomsday, and thus knowing optimal target areas. Yet, Anisa declined, and the two friends commenced an argument over which of them should dispatch Peyton. Morgan was convinced Peyton had not overheard their dispute, supposedly distracted by and observing flowers, an assertion highly unlikely to be true at that critical juncture. Anisa inflicted a stab wound, then transferred the knife to Morgan. Morgan then lunged onto Peyton and initiated a widespread stabbing across Peyton's body. As recounted by Morgan, the sensation was akin to cutting through air. Anisa withdrew, observing Morgan's actions. Subsequently, Morgan rose, and they departed from the scene. Morgan was stained with blood. Peyton cried out after them, expressing, "I trusted you. I hate you." Anisa then instructed him, "Lie still so you don't bleed out," intending to prevent Peyton from drawing attention through his screams. The injured youth attempted to stand, but was unable to do so. He would repeatedly collapse, articulating his inability to breathe and impaired vision. He was weeping, pleading with his companions for assistance. Morgan approached Peyton and attempted to cleanse the blood from his body using leaves, but this effort proved futile. Peyton requested him not to touch him. Morgan and Anisa feigned an intent to seek aid and then fled, abandoning him there to perish. However, rather than obtaining help, they proceeded to a Walmart store. Upon arrival, they entered the restroom, where they rinsed blood from their hands and attempted to remove bloodstains from their garments, albeit unsuccessfully. During questioning, Morgan even wavered when asked if he wished to see his parents, potentially suggesting familial issues. According to Morgan, Anisa had informed him that eliminating Peyton was necessary to ensure Slender Man would cease bothering them. Otherwise, he would target their families, thereby compelling their action. This persuasion led Morgan to agree to the act. Morgan confessed, "I was bewildered. I understood our actions, yet I wished to avoid displeasing my closest friend, Anisa. Discovering a genuine friend proves difficult." The Slender Man is depicted as a tall, faceless, fictional entity known for abducting children. Morgan and Anisa harbored a desire to serve as assistants to the Slender Man, with whom they were infatuated, and to validate his existence. They envisioned residing in his forest mansion, failing to grasp that he was merely a figment of imagination. They were convinced they had personally encountered him. Anisa appeared deeply distressed during the interview, barely managing to suppress his tears. He disclosed that Morgan, similar to himself, had experienced auditory hallucinations, which he believed compelled his actions. According to Anisa's account, in December 2013, it was Morgan who proposed to Anisa that they become Slender Man's acolytes, a proposition Anisa accepted. Morgan subsequently claimed to have forged an agreement with Slender Man, necessitating the elimination of Peyton. Otherwise, Slender Man would pursue and claim both them and their families. Consequently, they felt compelled to murder their companion. Anisa stated that they deliberated the crime while still aboard the school bus, conversing in hushed tones, indicating their desire to avoid eavesdropping and their awareness of the perilous nature of their scheme. They comprehended the risks involved. Furthermore, Anisa asserted that Morgan brought the knife, concealing it behind his waistband beneath his sweatshirt, a statement that directly contradicted his friend's earlier claim that Anisa had placed the weapon in his backpack. Anisa maintained that only Morgan performed the stabbing, claiming he had no involvement due to his purported good character and aversion to the sight of others' blood. However, bloodstains discovered on his attire rendered his assertions implausible. Both individuals attempted to assign culpability for the incident to the other. Following their visit to the Walmart store, they proceeded on foot to Nicolet National Park in Wisconsin, a location they believed to be Slender Man's dwelling. Anisa asserted to have witnessed him there, describing him as a tall man dressed in a suit, lacking a face, instead possessing only a white mask. Anisa reported that during their journey, the two friends engaged in an altercation because Anisa began to experience remorse concerning Peyton, whom they had abandoned in the woods, and started to attribute blame for the events of Morgan. They apprehended that a return home was impossible, as it would lead to their apprehension. Anisa expressed regret for the events, a stark contrast to Morgan, who recounted everything during interrogation with a calm, emotionless demeanor, displaying no remorse. Furthermore, under questioning, they confessed that their initial plan involved murdering Peyton in his sleep during the night, thereby avoiding direct eye contact. Their intent was to apply duct tape over his mouth to prevent screams and then flee, but they later discarded this notion, reluctant to involve their families. Subsequent to law enforcement's discovery of the youths and the issuance of a wanted person's notice, a passing motorist observed them and alerted the authorities. Ultimately, they were apprehended a mere 30 minutes later, after Peyton had been discovered walking through the woods. The backpack accompanying the youths contained candy bars, Morgan's diary, photographs of their families, and a knife. Blood was evident on both Morgan's and Anisa's clothing. Law enforcement scrutinized their computers and mobile phones, revealing that Morgan had conducted search queries including cover-up murder, guilt for murder, what happens if I get caught for murder, and can I get arrested for murder in self-defense. This evidence substantiated that they were meticulously planning the crime and researching optimal execution methods. The inquiry further disclosed that a student had previously informed the school counselor about overhearing Anisa discussing his discovery of a method to become Slender Man's assistant, which required him to kill someone, and that the school counselor purportedly did not react. Police located this specific school counselor, who denied having been told such information. Numerous other classmates recounted to the police that Anisa had invited them to participate in the crime and alluded to the murder of his friend. But they declined and did not treat Anisa's statements with gravity, now experiencing remorse for not reporting the matter to the police promptly. A farewell message, dated May 28th, was discovered in Anisa's phone notes, stating, "My final wish to those who care. Do not grieve my absence, but remember me for the person I was. I love you and will not inflict harm upon you. I desire all my possessions to remain with my parents, and I extend my best wishes to everyone who knows me personally. Do not miss me." Their school lockers were adorned with illustrations depicting gory figures, knives, and the Slender Man. Peyton proved to be a resilient young man. He did not surrender to death, comprehending that his companions had fled and no assistance would arrive. Amassing all his remaining strength, he painstakingly crawled towards the road in search of aid, where he was subsequently discovered by a cyclist. Peyton was unable to speak due to intense pain, communicating solely through head nods. He was on the brink of unconsciousness. The young man had sustained critical, life-threatening injuries, one of which was mere millimeters from his heart. Peyton was immediately transported to the emergency room, where medical professionals successfully saved his life. 6 days subsequent to the assault, Peyton recovered consciousness and then underwent a prolonged period of both mental and physical recuperation. He required psychological intervention. Peyton continues to experience nightmares involving his former friends and resides in perpetual apprehension. He disclosed that Morgan, prior to inflicting the stab wounds, expressed regret but asserted it was the sole means to rescue him from the Slender Man, who was purportedly pursuing him. Morgan's and Anisa's parents were cognizant of their son's fascination with Slender Man and other fictitious entities featured on horror websites, yet perceived no inherent danger in this interest. They remained unaware of the profound fear and intense captivation the youths harbored for him, and consequently, took no remedial action. Educators characterized Morgan as an unusual, unsociable individual who remained isolated, largely avoided by his peers. On one occasion, Morgan was observed running through the school, asserting that Snape from Harry Potter was pursuing him. No one paid heed to this, dismissing it as mere youthful fantasy. Another time, students witnessed him in the restroom, engaged in an unsettling act of playing with blood on his fingers. The sight was unsettling. The instructor informed Morgan's mother of the incident, who responded by stating her son was simply re-engaging with frightening narratives. The teacher conversed with the youth, advising him to cease viewing such content. However, Morgan disregarded this advice. Subsequently, he brought a hammer to school, which inadvertently fell from his locker, drawing the attention of other students. The youth was subsequently summoned to the principal's office, where he articulated that he required the hammer for purposes of self-defense. The principal observed Morgan engaging in self-talk and reported this to his mother. His classmates witnessed him carrying a journal in which he recorded his thoughts, and the word death was inscribed within it, a sight that genuinely alarmed everyone. The instructor once more conveyed this concern to his mother, who, however, failed to treat Morgan's unfolding issues with gravity. His mother stated that Morgan had demonstrated a lack of empathy for others since childhood. For instance, following the viewing of the cartoon Bambi, he remained entirely unaffected by the death of the mother deer, merely uttering, "Run, Bambi, run." Morgan Geyser, age 12, and Anisa Weyer were subsequently charged with attempted first-degree murder. During the trial, Anisa testified that he did not view the situation with gravity, believing he and Morgan were engaged in a form of game, and that he only comprehended its seriousness once Morgan commenced stabbing Peyton's body. According to his testimony, he harbored no intent to inflict harm upon anyone. His sole objective was to validate the existence of this fictional character and to explore alternative methods of achieving this. Anisa and Morgan feared that failure to adhere to their plan would result in Slender Man pursuing them, which served as their motivation for committing this offense. The youths expressed regret for their actions. Morgan received a diagnosis of early-stage schizophrenia. It was subsequently revealed that his father suffered from schizophrenia, indicating the hereditary transmission of the illness. Morgan entered a guilty plea, yet was acquitted as part of the settlement, owing to his mental illness. He was subsequently committed to a psychiatric hospital for a period of 40 years. Anisa, during the trial, pleaded guilty to being an accessory to attempted premeditated murder, but the jury rendered a verdict of not guilty by reason of mental illness. He purportedly struggled to differentiate between reality and his fantasies. Anisa received a sentence of 25 years in a psychiatric hospital. Nevertheless, in the summer of 2021, the court approved Anisa's application for parole. Medical professionals affirmed that he no longer posed a threat to himself or the wider community. On September 13, 2021, Anisa, then 19 years old, was discharged from the psychiatric institution. Anisa now resides with his parents, with intentions to pursue further education and secure part-time employment. He remains under continuous surveillance via GPS. His computer activity is monitored to ascertain he refrains from accessing frightening websites. He is prohibited from consuming alcohol or illicit substances or possessing any weaponry. Contact with Peyton or his family is strictly forbidden. Peyton is currently 19 years old. He has successfully completed high school and matriculated into university for medical studies. He currently has no female companions, but is involved in a relationship with a male partner.